Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has given us unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure or admire an old one. What will we find today? Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
When my kids were little, we played a game called Mama Says, which is like Simon Says, but you do everything Mama says, no matter how silly, until I said stop. It was really a game that taught them to obey, so if they were headed to something dangerous, I could holler stop, and they'd automatically stop whatever they were doing. I think a lot of what God tells us to do sometimes is practice for something more serious. For example, when we're young, He gives us parents and tells us to obey and honor them, so we will be ready as adults to obey and honor Him. In the Old Testament, God tells His people to do many things that don't completely make sense at the time, but become clear later, sometimes much later. One of those is a short story in Numbers 21 that we would miss if we blink. The people were wandering sometime during those 40 years in the wilderness, and they became discouraged. And the people spoke against God and Moses, saying, "Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and our soul loathes this worthless bread." Now, for one thing, at this point, if they had trusted God in the first place, they would comfortably be in their own homes in the Promised Land. But instead, they were wandering the desert. As to no food and water, didn't God always provide when they needed it? In fact, every morning except Sabbath, God provided manna. Now, even I would get tired of only eating chocolate every day, but it was something that God had provided for them miraculously, so they should be grateful. He didn't strike them all down with one big lightning bolt for their disrespect here. I would have been tempted to. Instead, the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many of them died. Therefore the people came to Moses and said, "We have sinned. Pray to the Lord that He will take away the serpents from us." It worked for the Egyptians with the lice and frogs and all the other plagues, but it didn't work this time the way that they thought it would. When Moses prayed, the Lord told him to make a bronze serpent and put it on a pole, instructing the people to look at it, and they would live. Moses probably had no idea why he was doing this, but he obeyed. Now that pole with the bronze serpent ended up getting them in trouble later, and Hezekiah had to destroy it, because the people of his day had started worshiping the thing. But Jesus used this story of the serpent on a pole saving the people from physical death to explain to Nicodemus what would happen with His crucifixion to bring spiritual salvation. He said, "As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have eternal life." Nicodemus knew this story from the book of Numbers, so when he thought about this later, maybe even after the crucifixion, it would have made sense to him. The serpent was lifted up publicly, as Jesus was crucified publicly during Passover, when every Jewish male would have been there to see it. He said He must be lifted up. There was no other way. The perfect lamb had to be sacrificed. The law had to be fulfilled. He had to take our place. He told the disciples later, "If I am lifted up from the earth," in other words, crucified, "I will draw all peoples to myself." He actually became sin for us. We're bit by the serpent of sin, and we're dying from its poison. God told them to look on it and live. We are to look on Jesus and live. It's the faith of looking to Him as our only hope for salvation. And this is for everyone. Whoever believes in Him should not perish but have eternal life. So just look in faith and believe. It's for all of us. Have you been saved from sin's poison? If so, how can you lift Him up today so that others who are dying in their sin can look on Him and believe?
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. We'd love to hear the treasures God has given you through His Word. You can listen to other episodes on our website, which you can find in the description below. Thank you for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.